see her around. You probably have read 1 or 2 emails from her. You probably have spoken to her on the phone. But what you probably, maybe you know, maybe you don't know, is she is a powerhouse of a person. She is someone who has the ability to transform an idea and a dream into something physical, tangible, something that transforms life, something that changes people, changes society. The idea of the Ubumuntu Art Festival is one of those that she has created. It was a modest idea, a modest plan, but with an ambitious vision. And 11 years later, that modest idea has birthed so many big projects, has created a life for people, has transformed people's thinking and mindset, and is one of the reasons why we're here. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the artistic director, the curator of the Ubumuntu Arts Festival, Hope Azida. I'm sure you can do better. I'm sure it can be louder. I'm sure it can be more excited. Keep it going until she gets here.
Thank you, everyone, for what did you just do? This is not my space. I prefer rehearsal studio. But I think that's the reason why we created these projects. Can we artists get out of our studios and get to know the conversations going around us? Who's talking about us? I always see it as that story of a coffee farmer and a coffee consumer. The two never meet and talk about that coffee. So this is what I see and envision into this Unconference. That's why you call it Unconference. It's a very kind of a conference, but another kind of conference. I just want to thank each one of you for being here this morning. Thank you for accepting me in your space. Thank you for the everything love, for being here this morning. How many artists were with us yesterday in Ruhuha? Yeah, a bus and a half is still waking up and coming to this conference. We went yesterday almost to the border of Burundi yesterday, and we met thousands of people waiting for us to, share art with them about art and memory. So I just want to thank you for making it this. It was hard for me as well. I went to bed around 1 a.m., but all in good faith, all in good faith. I just want to welcome the Minister of Youth and Arts, who is here with us, Minister PS, of course, Permanent Secretary Ms. Ngabo, thank you so much. I also just want to take this time to welcome another friend of mine from Brazil, Irene. Ambassador Irene is just starting at the Brazilian embassy here in Rwanda. She's been here for 2 months, and I gave her short notice. I was like, are you here? She said, Hope, can we have a coffee over the weekend? I'm like, no, I want you to come and talk, and then we can have coffee. But she received me in Brazil, and we talked about embassies. This is how I realized that actually artists play a big part in cultural diplomacy. It was very hard for me to go to Brazil. I had to get a visa via Nairobi embassy, and then we had lunch about this. And before I know, they're really talking about visas for Rwandans and how they can go to Brazil and all that stuff. And just to see an embassy coming here, thank you so much for coming. And I just want to also take this time to appreciate Fola. Fola is a friend of mine from Nigeria. Fola just reached out and said, can I deal with your social media? Can I help you start? Because we artists, we hide in our studios. Some of us, especially performing like theater, we don't want to talk about what we are doing. We always think it's not ready. Yes, so Fola, thank you for being with us in this journey. Jackie, Edmond, all the journalists that have been very supportive, we can't thank you enough. I also just want to thank my friend Lena from Belgium. Lena started the Search for Common Grounds, a peacekeeping kind of project in the Great Lakes region, where we've been in contact. And today, Lena is here for the first time in something I've put together. Lena, thank you so much. When did you come? Yesterday? Yes, I'm here to thank people and welcome them. That's my speech. And I just want to thank Urban Souls from US. Please put up your hands. They're going to put up a beautiful performance. They do amazing stuff. And we also met like how many years? 6? 12 years, and they're here again. So this is the beauty about art. It keeps us glued together. We may be apart physically, but in spirit, and we connect really strongly. And this is why I love art so much. So thank you so much for coming. We can't wait to see what you're going to be doing for us this weekend. And I also just want to thank Erin from Greece, who is here. She did a training yesterday. And I also want to thank Dr. Mel. Where are you? Yes, he likes hiding a lot. So he trained students, about 50 students, on cultural diplomacy. That was our first task. So I don't know how we got ourselves into this as a festival. We started with just 2 humble days at the Kigali Genocide Memorial. Before we know, we are doing trainings. Before we know, we are doing conferences. Now we have also the memory caravan, and we cannot just see where this goes, because you never see growth. You know, you can plant a seed like a tree, and you see it up, but you don't see the process of growth. And this is what amazes me. How does growth be monitored? But it's through actions, I guess, or through the fruits of the seed we plant. So we are here to plant seeds of legacy, definitely. We are going to have amazing, amazing performances. We have about 13 countries plus here. And this cultural diplomacy also supports all our artistic collaborations and residences. We have about 6 countries collaborating on indigenous instruments and music and world digital music. And they're trying to see how does AI become our friend, and we can also maintain who we are as instruments. So the project is called Identity and Belonging, and or who am I as an instrument. So the instrument you just see is the Rwandan guitar, and Sophia is the first woman I saw playing it here in Rwanda, and she was passed on that instrument by her father, and now she taught her son. So it will not disappear. It's still here with us, as you saw. So that's what we'll be talking about a lot this afternoon and tomorrow. And tomorrow, there'll be a huge concert of really this kind of music, so don't miss. So is that Philip? Yeah, please, you just wave to Philip. Philip Urswata is a lecturer of drama in Makerere University. So our audience may be small here, but it's quite an audience. Everyone is quite strong, and you know. So Philip was my classmate in drama classes at Makerere University, and he's been bringing, and we didn't know whether I would ever meet when I left Uganda. I came here, but Philip has been bringing performances every year in the festival, and he always texts me and says, Hope, I need a challenge. So every year he asked me for a challenge, and I gave him an idea. So this year, guess what? The challenge I gave him, I told him, Philip, what is an invoice? You know, every time we see an invoice, your eyes go like this. What? And then it's an invoice. So what's an invoice? And I was like, Philip, that's your challenge. So he's going to do a production called The Invoice. And whatever that is, it tells me. So every year, I give him a challenge. So ladies and gentlemen, most welcome. I don't want to talk so much here, but you know, my heart is just overfilled with your presence here. And we don't know where this is going, but it's going to go great. Thank you so much, and most welcome.
Thank you so much, Hope. Okay, I'm not going to climb up there again, so I'll just speak to you from here. And we want to keep this really going quickly so that we can get into all of the programs for the day. Coming up next is Dr. Meli Barut, and he is the Cultural Diplomacy Training Program Curator all the way from Turkey. Put your hands together for Dr. Meli. All right, I've been instructed not to give you this, so you can just go straight up there. Yes, thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. Everyone can hear me, right? Yes, thank you. So hello everyone once again. So I'm super excited to be here. My name is Melih Barut, as Fola mentioned. It's great pleasure and honor to be here and addressing such a great audience. Well, thank you very much. Well, what I'm going to talk about today is is basically I'm going to give you some insights about what we are doing, what we have done so far. Time is smoking in a tremendous rate, and when I come here, everything was amazingly moving. Within 2 days, we have covered a training program, mental health day, memory caravan, as my colleagues mentioned. Now today is the cultural diplomacy and Unconference day. And down on the road, we have music is humanity and Ubumuntu classics. That's amazing. We have already done that. So now I would like to as one of the people who are trying to shape things up, I would like to give you some insights about the format. The format is very important here. We are flexible, we are participant-driven, highly interactive, bottom to top, active participation. We are especially expecting this throughout the upcoming 2 days. Dialogues and brainstormings will happen, and spontaneous sessions, everyone will contribute. This is going to be two-way traffic, or all-way traffic. We need to understand each other. We need to connect with each other. This is the whole idea of cultural diplomacy. And creativity is top priority here. And the whole process will be enriched with the art performances as well. So, since this is not a regular conference, I don't want to dive deep into the scholarly stories. So basically, I would like to give you the objective of this amazing organization, this amazing Unconference. Then I will introduce you basically what cultural diplomacy is. Then I will tell you about what we did during our training programs. And lastly, I will share the program with you. The objective of this Ubuntu Cultural Diplomacy Conference is, I'm sorry. I should take you forward. Yeah. The objective of Ubumuntu Cultural Diplomacy Unconference is to explore and advance the role of art as a strategic tool in diplomacy, and use cultural expressions in building a peaceful, prosperous, progressive, shared future. Our concentration is shared future. How we can make our future better, safer, all together by benefiting the elements of art. So that is the problem on the table, and within following days we will be talking about that one. So in order to accomplish that one, we need to have a conceptual compass. So cultural diplomacy is engaging with the foreign audiences through diverse forms of cultural assets, language, literature, music, performance arts, theater, heritage, culinary arts, for building bridges. This is the idea. Building bridges between peoples of the world. Building trust, building reputation, while advancing our national priorities in global scale. Well, as my colleague Hope Azadeh mentioned, a couple of days ago, we have executed a training program. That was truly amazing. Truly speaking, I was expecting like 30 to 40 students to apply for this training program. However, the applications reached like 140 plus, and we shut down the system since we will not be able to accommodate themselves. And that training program was truly amazing and highly complicated. It was the idea behind all this program was preparing the emerging diplomats of this nation or Africa to the future. It was some sort of introduction level training program. And this training program is supported by many international scholars and local scholars. And I guess we did a great job here. Well, the people who are successfully completed this training program will get the following certificate tomorrow. This is going to be a great privilege for them, I guess. Well, if I need to mention about the conversation that we are going to engage in the following two days, we are going to talk about the diverse effects of art and culture on our lives. As we all know, art has healing effect, connecting effect, inspiring effect, transforming effect, and uniting effect, and also empowering effect, liberating effect, and humanizing effect. As cultural diplomacy scholars, we need to benefit from all these effects. For what? Again, for shaping peaceful, prosperous, and progressive future for all. Okay, basically, we are going to have two very intensive days down on the road. So there will be plenary sessions, there will be so many workshops, so many brainstorming sessions, and I really attach great importance to one session where the attendees of the training program will participate, and they will talk about how they can shape the future through their perspectives. So they are the change makers. So we will get their views, and probably we are going to benefit from their feedbacks. All right, thank you very much for listening. It's very great pleasure and honor to be here and part of this process. Thank you.
So much. Thank you so much, Dr. Meli. Okay. I apologize. We were supposed to play you a video called Flames of Hope, but we're having some technical issues, so we're not able to play you the video now, but when everything is all sorted, the video will be played. Okay? Are you having a good time so far? No, you sound so dull. Are you sure? Okay. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Aha. Not enough. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it and you really want to show it. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it and you really want to show it. If you're happy and you know it, stamp your feet. Ah, I got you. Okay. Let's get things going. Coming up next, we have the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Youth and Art. His name is Ngabo Brave Olivier. Please put your hands together. He looks good too. Hi.
Good morning, everyone. It's quite not easy to follow my sister after this good energy giving. But I just want to say good morning to everyone, and we in the Ministry of Youth and Arts are very honored to be here, part of this beautiful venture of this conference. It's quite a good initiative. I've actually had an opportunity to have a conversation with Ambassador of Brazil. We're talking about how this whole thing has started. We, back in the days, were so kid and observing Hopa Zeda doing her thing, and kindly clap the hands for her because she did not give up for this beautiful Ubumuntu Art Festival. She has been doing it for more than 10 years now, if I'm not mistaken. And it is really something to encourage and to be part of. So we have been watching it happening, and the importance of Ubumuntu. Itself, Ubumuntu means humanity if you look at a holistic approach. But it being an art festival, it also gives a platform of healing, in a sense of the expression of our emotions, our thoughts, our whatever we have. I keep on talking to the artists to say, what is your source of creation? How did you get this? I don't even know how to call it, but wherever you got the inspiration from, it needs to be a place of that has all wellness all around, because the anger can also push you to create something as a source of expression. This is why we also acknowledge the art, the piece of art, itself being a healing expression, but it is also something really to acknowledge, and in the ministry, thankful for having people like Hopa Zeda who remind us to have this self-reflection. So we have the healing from individual, so to the collective as a country, but also now bringing different countries together in here in Rwanda. We can do this process together. So it is also something to be happy for, but also recognize it as a dialogue between people, as she just Ellie mentioned, that you are in the background working on your piece of art and think that is not even yet ready to share it to the public, but also creating this connection between the artist and the audience and the consumers themselves, because we who are not artists are so much curious to know where is the source of creation came from, what was the intention behind the piece of art, what do you mean by this piece of art? So having this kind of conference that brings different countries together, it is something really to be happy for, because it brings us, the audience, especially to nourish our curiosity of knowing the source of creation and everything, and also having the conversation between artists, connecting, as the doctor just showed it in the presentation. It is also something really good that promotes peace, global solidarity through performance and storytelling. Talking about the theme of this year, the cultural diplomacy, it is a bridge between not only individuals but also nations through art performance. That's something we call soft power. When we do the intercultural diplomacy, we exchange not only our heritage, but also our piece of art, our expressions, and the meaning behind what you see as a piece of art. Because at the end of the day, we are all human beings. It is very important to have this diplomacy culture exchange. I'm not going to take much time of you, but we really want to be to call for action for more of this kind of conferences, this kind of engagement and initiatives across not only the country, the continent, but also globally, because it really helps not only exchanging in terms of heritage and culture, but also it's a culture of expression where people do express what they have been through, how they feel about this world, and the rest, so that we have this energy exchange of either healing, but also learning quite a number of things through art performance. We would also encourage more of the private sector or any other different institutions to be part of this good initiative, because we do acknowledge that it is an initiative that requires some resources. If we do understand what this initiative is doing to our own inner healing, so the collective, we should really be more engaged into this kind of initiative as investment, part of it, also supporting HOPE or any other event organizers such as those ones. So, in the name of Ministry of Youth and Arts, we declare this conference open, and we thank you for giving us floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Olivier. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we are keeping things going, but let me tell you a quick story, right? You know how we've been saying that art builds bridges, art connects people. So art kind of directly or indirectly connected me to Rwanda. The first time I came here into this country, it was because of Ubumuntu Arts Festival. And before I came here, my knowledge of the country was quite limited, apart from one or two mentions in the news and, you know, the thing that everybody knows about Rwanda. I had no personal knowledge. I had never interacted with a Rwandan. But then I heard about the festival. I got to meet with Hope. We met online, and then we started exchanging emails, and then I traveled here back in 2016. And my perspective shifted. I met Rwandans, I became friends with Rwandans, and now I live here. So it's art that has built that bridge, that has connected me, and it's going to connect you too. So maybe you might just find yourself moving from Greece and living in Rwanda. You don't know. So be open-minded, be free. It's going to be a beautiful conversation today. And as we set up that conversation, we're going to build a bridge right now, because this is one side, this is another side. Do you know how we're going to build that bridge? You are going to move from here and go find someone over there, introduce yourself, shake hands, get to know each other, and you're going to do the same thing. On the count of 3. Are we ready? 1, 2, go. Come on. Say hi, nice to meet you. Introduce yourself. Superstar Sophie, you can do it. No, cross the bridge, cross the bridge, cross the bridge, cross the bridge. And while that is happening, ladies and gentlemen, are we building bridges? Are you sure? Don't stand alone, build that bridge. While that is happening, let's get ready. We're going to have a panel session right now. And the panel is Cultural Diplomacy and Art for Promotion, Promoting Global Public Good. Oh, I love this. Don't stand alone, build bridges. Brian, can we have some music? Hi, nice to meet you. My name is Fola.
My name is Audrey.
O-
I come Audrey.
Audrey,
Yeah.
nice to meet you.
Modest.
Modest, I like your name. It means modesty. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much. Yes.
Catherine has to start at 11:30. Otherwise,
Yeah, she's coming up now.
you have to initiate the.
All right.
the
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. We can have our seats now. Thank you so much. Give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that's my favorite song. Eh.
I met a man on the road when I walked by.
Oh, yeah.
He was staring in my face and I asked why. He said, young man, I know who you are. You are the lion who's written in stars. I was taken by surprise, man, I won't lie. But I rolled my eyes and I told him, well, okay, if I am who you say, why do I feel like I'm
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Why, oh, why, oh, why, oh,
That was nice, wasn't it?
He said, boy, just believe what you pray. And no Kigali was not built in a day. My, oh, my, oh, my, oh, my, oh, my, oh, my, oh, my. So I said,
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hope we are ready for our panel now. Thank you. Thank you very much. I hope you got those phone numbers and those emails. There will be more time for networking, so we continue to build a bridge, we continue to interact, we continue to connect. Our next panel is Cultural Diplomacy and the Art for Promoting Global Public Goods, moderated by Erini, the project manager for Heritage Management Organization, and she'll be coming up to introduce the panelists. Please put your hands together for Erini. Erini, I'm playing it safe by not calling your last name because I don't want to mess it up.
Such a great stage, and I'm not sure if I should dance here or sit at the chair. Anyways, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day one of the Unconference and the first discussion of the Unconference. Thank you, Ubumuntu Arts Festival, for sharing your creativity with the world. It's very important for me personally as well. So we are very honored to be joined by two remarkable panelists coming from the spheres of art and diplomacy. Here, physically, we have Ambassador Irene Vida Gala, diplomat chargé d'affaires, Brazilian Embassy in Kigali, former ambassador of Brazil to Ghana, specialist in Brazil-Africa relations, advocate for gender equality in diplomacy. Thank you. And I will introduce the second panelist as well, who is connected virtually. She's Catherine, have a seat. Catherine Weir. We have a connection from Paris. She's curation and writer, co-artistic director of Lagos Biennial, artistic director of the Madre Museum of Contemporary Art, director of interdisciplinary programs at Center Pompidou. We welcome both of you. They all represent important sectors connected to cultural diplomacy and arts as well. I think we should give the floor to Catherine, who is connecting from abroad. We will give her some time to introduce herself, and after that, she will be available for some questions for you. Hello, Catherine. Good morning.
Hello, hi. Thank you. Thank you, Fola and Nurini. Very happy to be with you all today virtually and to share the stage with Ambassador Vidagala. So I've actually been in Rwanda, but a very long time ago when I was around 15. So not there physically today, would have loved to be, but connected from Paris. And very glad for the invitation. Thank you to the festival director, Hope Azeda, and also to the Unconference director, Dr. Barut. And I'd like to mention also Professor Federica Olivares from the Università Cattolica in Rome, who spoke at the training course the other day. And it was her that suggested my name to participate today, so I'm very grateful for that also. And thanks to all of you who are there and joining this session on cultural diplomacy and art, promoting the public good. So now I will speak a little and show some images also, so that then this can give some examples of artistic practice that I see as very much being involved in both cultural diplomacy and promoting the public good. And at the end of my my presentation, it would be great to take a number of questions if there's interest. I'm very sorry that I actually have to disconnect in about 40 minutes as I'm traveling this afternoon, so I may not be able to stay for the whole presentation of the ambassador. So my apologies in advance for that. Is my, my PowerPoint is up, so you can see the images, I believe. So I'm going to talk about how artists can be knowledge partners for promoting the public good. And start, as I said, with giving you a bit of a snapshot of the practices that I have in mind when I'm asking this question. Across the world today, artists and collectives are working in very embedded ways, developing different types of initiatives, multidisciplinary initiatives that respond to specific social, ecological, and political conditions, often in situations that are lacking in infrastructures, and the initiatives are really not just about cultural production or about producing artworks. They're forms of research, of pedagogy, and of civic engagement. They generate knowledge that is context sensitive, networked, and often it can be specifically oriented towards the transformation of knowledge systems, of dominant European knowledge systems, amongst others, that may have been imposed through colonial occupation or through the structuring of the global economy. So they're oriented to the creation of more situated understandings of the world and reciprocal respect for these. So this is a dimension that I think strongly engages with cultural diplomacy, because how can you begin to speak about cultural diplomacy unless there's reciprocal knowledge and respect? I'd like to investigate how some of these practices can inform and expand the work of broader sections of the community working to promote the public good. So can they open new windows onto local realities, offer early insights into emerging tensions or emerging opportunities, help frame alternative pathways towards sustainable and inclusive communities? How can people working in socially engaged ways on issues from health to agriculture to heritage engage with artists not only as creators, but as collaborators, co-thinkers, and catalysts for reimagining shared futures? So as I said, I wanted to show images to give a few concrete examples of the types of work that you have that I have in mind. On the screen, you can see a work by Filipino artists, Isabel and Alfredo Aquilazan, who worked with me in Western China in Chengdu to create an enormous installation, but that was based on little individual sculptures made in workshops with young people who were expressing their idea of home. And then they made an enormous satellite dish that kind of brought together all of these different ideas and talked about transmission and communication. Can we move to the next slide, please? So since the 1990s, there's been a very strong turn towards collaborative and social forms of artistic practice. In places where official art structures might be scarce or that they don't correspond to what artists want, artists and others have worked together to make art spaces, publications, exhibitions, schools, programs, run festivals, and so on, creating really new forms of practice. You know, as I said, not so much. They may involve making objects, but that's not the end. It's centered on research, knowledge sharing, and developing networks of relationships. So this shifting nature of artistic practice is very much engaged, lays claims with the public sphere and engagement with civil society. And knowledge sharing is a path to empowerment and participation in social processes. Many of these initiatives are both inside and outside the art world and include members who are researchers, urbanists, architects, activists, educators. It's artistic research that's rooted in specific social and cultural contexts and the kind of interdisciplinary knowledge that's produced there that helps to create the conditions for dialogue between different systems of thought and different geographies and located histories. So let's talk in concrete terms for a moment about some of the methodologies and communities and networks developed through Cosmopolis, which is a platform that I initiated around 10 years ago at the Centre Pompidou in Paris, where I'm based, but that was conceived really to bring artists into dialogue across expanded geographies, developing experimental formats and bottom-up initiatives that reflect different site-specific conditions. Can we move to the next slide? So I hope you can see, if the projection is large enough, this is some examples of how the space was activated in this first edition, Collective Intelligence, that transformed the exhibition space. This was at the Centre Pompidou, but it involved residencies and discursive events elsewhere in the lead up. And this space was transformed into a school that was activated every week with talks, reading groups, workshops, concerts, on a regular program each week. So people came back. There was a season ticket that let you come in as many times as you liked. The works installed in the space included work from Invisible Borders in Nigeria about their road trips that collect information, making photographs and developing workshops. There was a work by Iconoclastistas from Argentina, just giving you some examples, collective mapping of who owns the land across all geographies, looking at farmers, mainly women, and then who owns the resources and the title to the lands farmed. There was also Rangrupa from Indonesia, the collective that runs schools and festivals and thinks about new economic models for collective practice, if you're outside really the gallery system for art and selling works. And the speakers each week included an artist from Caribbean Film Collective, Elizabeth Povinelli, who spoke on how indigenous practice can displace the European idea of art as being primarily about aesthetics and asked the question, what can art actually do? Another speaker, Felwin Sarr, from Senegal, spoke about alternative economies in relation to West African models, able to foster kind of financial, environmental, and sociocultural sustainability. Walter Mignolo spoke on ecology and decoloniality, and particularly the dispossession and extraction around which relations between humans and the environment have been structured over the last 500 years or so of European expansion. So there were all these different lines of research, reading groups in relation to these thinkers, workshops, musical concerts every Friday that looked at the sources of all the new musical forms in the last 100 years that have come from the African continent and classical African musical forms. Different collectives kind of proposed these different aspects of the program, and it was a very, very rich space of learning and relationships. We can move to the next slide. This then generated other editions with the idea that Cosmopolis would move to different places and think about the kinds of issues and dynamics that were most relevant to artists in those geographies, in those locations. So a second major edition in Chengdu in Western China, in Sichuan, called Enlarged Intelligence, explored, after collective intelligence in the first edition, explored how, the collective can reappropriate or open to ecological intelligence and also technological intelligence to support the common good and social values, rather than technological intelligence simply advancing economic or political agendas. So a whole series of artists working, in relation to communities, geographies, and issues in particular places, then generated new questions. Each edition kind of added new lines of research and questioning, but maintained the network of artists. We can move to the next slide, which shows some images from Cosmopolis 1.5 in Chengdu and in the rural areas around it. In fact, this edition was presented across 5 sites in the city, urban space, and rural space, and included residencies for research and production. One rural village in what was traditionally a bamboo paper-making area welcomed the artist collective from Indonesia, Rangrupa, that I'd also worked with already in Paris. Another collective from Colombia, Arquitectura Expandida, collective of architects and of artists. And they worked with local residents really in response to their needs and questions, how to keep younger people in the rural space, how to create social spaces in the village, and so on. There was another Sri Lankan Australian artist who worked in a ceramics factory in nearby, in a rural area, holding workshops that link ceramics to environmental science and relating particularly then to pesticide use in agriculture. There was also a major commission that you can see on the top left of the screen of 3 floating pavilions by the Nigerian architect Kunle Adeyemi that was installed in an ecological park created by the city on the edge of Chengdu. So it was a really articulated, layered iteration of Cosmopolis that still built on the same networks, but adding new faces and friends to that network of artists and thinkers. We can move to the next slide. Here, actually, I wanted to speak quickly to the practice of Chinese artists Cao Minghao and Chen Zhenjun, who I've been working with since we met in Chengdu almost 10 years ago across many different contexts. And this artist duo have themselves worked for about over 15 years in a particular extended river system, reaching from Chengdu in Sichuan to the Qinghai Plateau in Tibet. They collaborate with communities of fisher people, farmers, herders living along the lengths of these rivers and investigate the stories and cosmologies that surround the water system. Their practice often involves other partners, environmentalists, geologists, anthropologists, musicians, local community members. You can see on the screen one of these collaborators, the farmer Wang Jihong, who in an area where there was massive dam construction and deforestation in the 70s and 80s, has for around 30 years been reforesting the hills with a huge range of different species of trees. So the artists have worked, documenting Farmer Wang's work through film, through installations, and presenting also discussions and debates around these processes. So now I'll move on, but just to say that we'll come back later to Minghao and Zhenjun to speak about how these networks of collaborators can generate new projects in different areas. Today we have a project together with artists in Nepal, Pakistan, Bangladesh on Himalayan water systems moving across geographies. Let's move to the next slide. So at the Centre Pompidou, the next Cosmopolis came back to kind of bring that knowledge back to that context and build a next framework of investigation. And this was Cosmopolis 2, Rethinking the Human, talking about scale and sustainability, examining how rural and small-scale social formations might offer new value systems, so building very much on the work around Chengdu. And it was also exploring how to move away from universalist European ideas of the human, referring particularly to the celebrated Jamaican philosopher and essayist Sylvia Wynter's ideas, as well as the work of Afro-Brazilian artist and thinker Denise Ferreira da Silva, who presented work in the exhibition and programs also. So again, there was a program that ran over the whole period of the exhibition, artists in residence, workshops, talks, reading groups, and so on. Many kind of collaborations, building collaborations, networks, building broader networks. Let's move to the next slide. So here you can see some of those within the space, the workshops, discussion groups, and conversations that developed. Other exhibitions then came out of that, Rethinking the Human, generated an exhibition in Italy at the museum in Naples, where I directed the programs in the following period, called Rethinking Nature. And then the same network were also invited to a show that I curated in Hong Kong about political ecology and feminism, or ecofeminism, called Green Snake, Women-Oriented Ecologies. I can't talk about all these projects, but to give you a sense of how generative the networks are and how it has been possible to work in a longer-term way with artists and thinkers and socially engaged practitioners of different sorts, through working against the grain in a certain way of how institutions always want to generate the new exhibition or the new best thing. So how do you actually express a longer term project in different ways, in different places? Let's move to the next slide. This is just another interesting work I wanted to do a spot focus on. Munem Wasif, Seed Shall Set Us Free. The artist worked at the Ubumuntu Seed Bank, created in Bangladesh, in central Bangladesh, in a rural area that I also visited with the artist, that was created by feminist activist Farida Akhtar and by Farhad Mazhar, organizers of the new agriculture movement. And their work on biodiversity-based ecological farmers movement started in the early 90s, with thousands of small-scale farmers abandoning chemical-based farming and laboratory seeds. So the artist was working with them to investigate that work, to make it visible, to show the value of these forms of long-term work on biodiversity in a context where, under British colonial rule, farmers had been forced to specialize in certain forms of agricultural production in jute and indigo in particular, and biodiversity had been lost. So artists are working together with others to work on very crucial issues in terms of the broader society. Let's move to the next slide. One of the other events that was generated, I'll just go through this quite quickly, through this network of artists, was at the Dhaka Art Summit in Dhaka in Bangladesh. We can move to the next image, where after collective intelligence in the Centre Pompidou, I was invited together with this network to present what was called the collective body. So a representation of these new types of collective artistic practice. In this case, the collective body brought together 30 interdisciplinary artist initiatives, half of them from Bangladesh, initiatives that had created festivals, cultural spaces, schools, and different forms of collaborative network within Bangladesh, and half of them from parallel contexts across Asia, the African continent, South America, and Oceania, to develop collaborations, debates, performances, concerts, a pop-up cafe, and so on. I think there might be one more slide there that we can have a look at that shows some artists that I work with, Gidri Boli, presenting puppet shows, developed with a puppet group of young people and with topics, narratives relating to questions that come out of village life. Let's move to the next one. And I'll just close on mentioning, this last project of Himalayan water systems, where a number of artists from Nepal, Pakistan, China, Bangladesh, India, and elsewhere across the Himalayas that I've worked with in the Cosmopolis context, and we've together generated a new research project, and we can move to the next slide, that talks about, you know, the water systems across this area where all of the longest rivers in this part of Asia initiate. We can move to the next slide. And looking at the Himalayas are called the third pole for the amount of water that's kind of contained in the glaciers and in the mountains there. Now, of course, this is changing with rising temperatures and climate change. The artists Cao Minghao and Chen Zhenjun, who I spoke about previously, are working with pastoralists in the high plains who are facing very strong desertification, but are developing new techniques for reseeding the grasslands and working against that. And the artists are collaborating to create a new environmental center to reinforce these practices. We can move to the next slide. And then down at the other end of what is called the Zalanyangpo in the Qinghai Plateau, the last stretch of the Brahmaputra. After that goes through India into Bangladesh. The same river systems connecting artists' work in different areas. Kidri Boli, who I mentioned recently, are part of this project. Their film Lost Shadows that you can see on the screen, working together with villages where they're based in Balia in northwest Bangladesh. They use that shadow theatre to conjure these images of non-human environmental agents, spirit beings that have been driven away by water scarcity and toxic effluent from fertilizers and pesticides. These lands are very marginal lands onto which increasing numbers of climate refugees are arriving from other parts of the country. So the collective's practice is rooted in local community issues and merges forms of long-standing aesthetic heritage, like these puppet theatre performances and music that goes along with them, with this socially engaged practice. The puppet theatre group is made up of mainly young girls, and they wrote the script for this film that talks about the drying up of the tributaries of the Tista River that runs into the Brahmaputra. It's kind of leaving farmers increasingly to depend on dwindling groundwater. So the narration talks about how these tributaries used to carry numerous varieties of fish and other aquatic life. And the shadows, you know, that cross the screen, these fabled beings were once part of the village community. We can move to the last slide, which shows some of the artists' collaborators for this film. And we can see how the geomorphology of rivers, water carving through mountains, connects ecosystems and artists across political and natural borders, as do the infrastructures of hydroelectric dams that modify the flow of the rivers and the processes of climate disruption, you know, causing the escalating glacial melts and transforming the monsoon systems that dictate the weather over these whole areas. These dialogues between artists working in these linked geographies testify to parallel struggles and practices that are centered, you know, on broader, more than human existence and the broader ecological and geomorphological context. So I'd like to invite us to consider what such models of practice might offer as we reflect on the evolving kind of role of cultural institutions and transnational collaboration, especially at this time of environmental urgency and shifting global alignments. So how can we look to these models to generate other collaborations and networks that also emphasize, you know, duration, mutual attention, the creation of relationships, qualities that are often missing in short-term cultural pragmatic cycles, but they're essential to building trust and real long-term effects. Thank you. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Catherine. It was really enlightening watching through your work how art can promote global public goods. As we don't have plenty of time, I would like to give the floor to the audience for questions. Let's see if there are questions. But while maybe you are thinking about that, Ambassador Irene, would you like to comment something on that? Or
sorry. Good morning, everybody. I'll make my remarks later, but I would just make reference to this interesting work of bringing together people that don't know each other. Probably when we see this work done in other parts of Asia, bringing together people from Africa, Latin America that she mentioned, this is interesting because I don't see many opportunities for us to bring all these people together. So just to make reference to these and my compliments to the work that she has been doing.
let's see if we have questions. I think the room needs some more information to provoke their thoughts. Okay. If there is any question, please help me to find the people. If I may ask something, Catherine, how, from your respective field, how have you seen art serve as bridge or a tool for cooperation in the long term?
Well, a lot of my work has been focused on that exact question of how do you create longer term relationships and collaborations that may have the time to begin to generate new models, share tools and strategies, have conversations that are real dialogues between specific situations, and don't remain at a kind of general level. It's a way also of reciprocal learning, moving out of dominant frameworks, and rethinking and expanding what the frameworks of art and knowledge can be. As I said, a lot of these artists that I'm collaborating with in these networks are partly inside and outside, also outside the art world, with members of collectives who might be urbanists or educators, scientists or activists, and finding then over time different contexts in which the collaboration can be expressed, and also different ways of supporting the collaboration. So fundraising is another part of what is necessary in order to develop these sustainable multi-directional connections, develop kind of communities of communities, and more situated perspectives on social, political, and ecological transformations. I didn't speak today about the Lagos Biennial. I was the co-artistic director of the last Lagos Biennial with Folakunle Oshun, and worked together with a whole network of artists and cultural producers of different sorts to create a biennial that is completely artist-initiated, artist-run, without any structural funding. So all of the funding had to be generated as part of the process of developing the ideas and the collaborations for that event. And all of the works were produced in Lagos, so there was no transport. It's also thinking about what different ways of working, whereas the art world has transported works at huge cost and great environmental footprint around the world. thinking of producing locally and moving people for longer periods for research and production residencies.
Thank you. We have a question.
Hello, thank you so much. I am an artist in America, and right now in America, we are dealing with a level of blatant racism that we haven't seen in our politics in the past 40 years. And I'm wondering what models are out there that we can look to as artists to be able to research and understand, to galvanize artists to take the responsibility that in order for us to fix this, this is going to be our work and probably the generation behind us work. So is there any models out there that we can study and look toward?
In the Lagos Biennial, just to speak to an example that is close to me, the network of artists around the Biennial and myself were able to get Terra Foundation funding to bring an important cohort of Black artists from the States to participate in the exhibition and the convening called World Made Communities, and to try and develop those networks of exchange around the difficulties in different contexts of trying to create as Black people facing enormous racism, overt and structural, or different forms. So I think those networks with the continent can be artists who came at that time, found that experience very important and empowering, to step outside the extremely violent and polarized North American context. I don't know if that's helpful, but that's what comes to mind immediately. I don't know if you want to speak more.
Thank you, Catherine. We have another one question here.
Thank you so much for such a rich set of examples. Wow. I'm curious, when you talk about thinking outside of the box and new frameworks, for example, of looking at rivers and climate change, do you then find an opening to engage, if I can call them decision makers, people who have influence over certain policies, to safely explore those new ideas? Or are there just too many barriers to access and engage? Because in some ways, art can be a very safe invitation to a new way of thinking. But other times there is fear and prejudice against exactly those kinds of initiatives.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the question. I think we are in a time where indeed in many geographies there are strong forms of censorship and fear around the kinds of freedom that artistic thinking can offer, the way it brings things together that are not usually thought together, and ask questions that are not visible, in the public sphere in a lot of cases. I think that we have examples of where artists have worked over long periods with those forms of constraint, but have still managed to put questions on the table and develop discussion about them, maybe in indirect ways that are not directly creating a polarized reaction, but trying to nevertheless, raise the fundamental issues. I do think that, as I mentioned, Elizabeth Povinelli, who spoke in Cosmopolis One, Collective Intelligence, as part of Caribbean Film Collective, Indigenous Film Collective in Northern Australia, about how Indigenous practice can decenter European ideas of art as mainly an aesthetic undertaking inscribed into certain European-centered histories, and she was saying, what can art do? You know, what actually can art do? And work that is relating to specific context, so research-based, bringing new knowledge to the table, that is transforming perception, you know, that in itself is a very important act of making possibility and empowerment, transforming the access to knowledge and then the way a situation is perceived. In many different contexts, art has been able to intervene in situations through these processes that are art specific. You know, they are not the same as activism. They are passing through a different positioning, but that are still very much activating new possibilities in the world. I'm not sure if that answered your question, but that's how I feel about socially engaged art practice.
Thank you for the questions and the answers, Catherine. I know your time is limited, so I don't know if you have time for another question, if there is any. There is one question. Do you have time for one last question?
Okay, let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. My name is David Nkusi, heritage expert from University of Rwanda. You have told us many things, and we talked about engagement, collaboration, partnerships, mapping of the actors, the artists. Do you have like one best practice that you normally use to identify these actors, different communities that you bring together on table? What method maybe do you use to identify them? Because you find some groups of people have influence or power, but without interest. And there are those with the interest without the influence. So how do you bring different people from different backgrounds together? Do you have any particular practice that we can look up to, like here in Rwanda? Thank you.
Thank you, David, for that question. I think the answers are completely context specific, but I can say that I have this idea of an open process, which is that you come into a new situation together with collaborators, maybe artists from other geographies who have different ways of working, or thinkers. For example, doing the project in Sichuan in Western China, and the first thing you need to do is listen and ask questions and be curious. It's about really being in the position of the one who doesn't know and trying to observe what artists are working on and what questions are being generated, what the dynamics are that they're responding to. And that open process is one that doesn't come in with a set framework, but that may bring a question, but then shift the direction of the investigation in relation to what you learn, or what people are happy to share with you about their practices and their concerns. So I think artist residencies is a strategy or a methodology that I'd also mention as a way of in different contexts, opening new conversations. You know, that may be artist residencies in the rural space to find out what the needs and questions are there, or it may also be artist residencies in a diplomatic mission or in a festival. You know, someone who's going to look with new eyes at that situation, ask questions, and share knowledge, and bring in networks as well. So how, that's when I speak about artists as knowledge partners, how to involve partners, you know, in terms of heritage also, which I think is your area of specialization, you know, bringing artists to work in relation to heritage projects. They have often really interesting lateral ideas about how you might reframe a particular site, open up new ways of thinking about it, and so on. I worked with one artist initiative in Bangladesh whose focus was on heritage sites, and it involved these short residencies within the site, research on histories, and then the production of a series of works in relation to that, where the works could take the form of performances, workshops. They might be also physical works of all sorts in a kind of festival. So I think there are really interesting models out there to go and have a look at online.
Thank you very much. Yeah. And thank you very much for your time. It would be great if you could be here with us physically and have more time for connection with all of us here. Hopefully it will happen in the near future. For the time being, we wish you a great day ahead, and thank you again for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, and have a wonderful rest of the day there.
So we will go back to Ambassador Irene Vida-Gala, who is patiently listening all this time. You are representing a more hard sector, if I may say. This is how diplomacy looks like in most of our people's eyes. So please tell us some things from your experience and your work.
Okay, I was about to say bom dia, that is in Portuguese. Good morning and almost good afternoon. Thank you so much. Let me just quickly acknowledge my privilege to be here with you, and I thank Hope for this invitation, but I'll be brief with this protocol side. And it was funny to hear you saying that I come with the hard part. We see the spectrum of ideas. So when we talk about diplomacy and cultural diplomacy, we talk about soft power, and you gave me the word hard. So it's funny how for an artist environment, diplomacy that deals with politics is something that's not so smooth. And what I hear is it's not something that people like. I think this is quite true, because while we see, and this is a conference about cultural diplomacy, while we see culture and arts, that's part of the subject here, as something that brings creativity, brings beauty, when it comes to diplomacy, we are talking about politics, and people tend to reject politics. So what I think is let's say, my challenge is to show to a group of artists that cultural diplomacy is something that's quite pleasant, necessary, and efficient. So how can we bring together two areas that are creativity and politics into something that at the end of the day is necessary for everybody? Okay? So I would say that when we come to this day, and it's interesting that at the very beginning, somebody mentioned, I think the host, she mentioned the time we are living in. The time we are living in is a time of where we are all preparing for war. We are all singing the songs that are showing us that we are going into war. But diplomacy is exactly the opposite. When diplomacy is not good enough, then we get into war. So I try to stress the fact that diplomacy is something that's bringing peace. And that is giving us the shared values that you have brought into the conversation. When diplomats talk, we tend to share values. And we want art to be part of the instrument that we use to build bridges. So how can we use an artist? How can we use culture to show that we don't need war, but we can live in peace? I think this can be done if we consider the good part of each of us. And when I talk of each of us, I'm talking about countries. I think cultural diplomacy mainly deals with who we are. We wanted to show the others, we wanted to show to other countries who we are and how beautiful we are. We don't want to show the bad things about us. We want to show the expression of our good things. So, linking all this, when we have cultural diplomacy, we use art to show who we are. And we may be very similar to others, but we may be different. And I think the idea of discussing the differences is something important, and how art can do this. But, and I will sum up this, I think it's important that artists, they understand that they are part of politics. They are doing part of this struggle to keep us in peace. And we know that when there is war, when there is any kind of radicalism, and so artists, they are going to be kept quiet. They cannot express themselves. And we are living in a time when what we see is all kinds of radicalism, all kinds of, all this extreme right coming into power. And that's what we also have to fight. It's interesting because when I was listening to the lady who spoke before me, we spoke about environmental issues. We spoke a little bit about human rights, but less. And then when we had a question from the audience about racism. So, you see, it's easy to be dealing in art with things that are common ground, that everybody more or less accepts, and like environmental issues, okay? But nowadays, in the current world, we are facing bigger challenges. And I think that artists, they have to face this reality and come into the struggle to keep us in a world where we can talk, we don't go to war.
Right. Thank you, because you give us the opportunity to think about cultural diplomacy and diplomacy probably in a different way. I don't know if you would like also to pass the floor to the audience to ask some of the questions they may have, because I'm sure people have questions. Until we have some questions from the audience, I'm also asking myself many times, cultural diplomacy often involves representing a nation's identity, but who gets to decide what is authentic?
I like this because it brings us to an issue that is so essential to arts expression, that is the idea of democracy. When my country, where we are 200 years old, more than that, up to the 60s, 1960s, so last century, culture and expression of values were the values of the white people, the elites, the European elites that went to Brazil were leading the country. After the 60s, we had the dictatorship, but then we were, due to the independence process in Africa, we had to become closer to Africa. And maybe some of you here know, but others may not know, after Nigeria in Africa, we are the second biggest African origin country in the world, in Brazil. So more than half our population has some kind of African origin. But up to that moment, African expression of art that's quite rich in our country, it was not being promoted outside to show who we are, how good we can do things, or how we do things. So when we had this, even under dictatorship, we had to change a little bit our cultural diplomacy to get closer to Africa. It was, you know, it was manipulating the reality. But then, in the end of the 80s, well, by the end of last century, when we re-entered democracy in our country, then there was a big shift because all cultural diplomacy in Brazil started bringing out to the world all the several countries that we are. We, being such a big country, more than 210 million people, we have many Brazils. And it's not one Brazil that is all the same. So when democracy comes, we can start showing that we are different countries, but we can live with some kind of, we live in peace, although with a lot of contradictions and challenges. But cultural diplomacy nowadays expresses a Brazil that has this lively exchange of views and who is leading. Because, for instance, now we are going to have COP30 by the end of the year. You have the artists of the indigenous people that were not coming out, but over the last 20 years we have this expression. Art of Brazil or culture of Brazil was very much associated with soccer and carnival, but we nowadays, over the last 20, 30 years, we have showed how complex we are. So I keep to this idea that cultural diplomacy shows who you are. And diplomats and politicians, and together with the artists, we have to identify the idea that we want to show outside. So art is very creative. It's something that comes from, let's say, your inner side, but this is politics. We have to work this under or inside a framework or in a framework that's very rational. We have a goal when we do cultural diplomacy. And I think this is important to have in mind. Are we reaching what? For instance, when we talk about cultural diplomacy, sometimes people put creative arts. When you sell your products, selling your products, it's a little bit of trade. You are selling the products of artists, and that's important for the economy of the country. But that's not what you definitely want to be. You want to sell coffee, you want to sell some kind of artistic product, but that's not you. You are more than that. And so I think the challenge of thinking who we are and what is the image that we want to sell abroad, and why to sell is how we present ourselves, and then we can be brought into decision-making process and how we can defend the interests of our country. At the end of the day, we want to promote our country and defend and sustain the well-being of our people. So it's a national program.
Great. I'm sure you have provoked a lot of thoughts here in the room. And let's see if we have questions from the audience. You have brought on the table a lot of topics now. Oh, okay, we have, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Ambassador. So my name is Lina. I actually am a peace builder. And I love what you're saying about how Brazil is reflecting its true multiple identities to the world. But internally, there's deep divides within Brazil, and culture, like you said, is politics. So do you see that artists, like the vibrant artists in Brazil, are also bridging divides between the Bolsonaro and the Lula factions, because each of them are using culture? And is that possible? Because in the United States, for example, it is sometimes hard to bridge to more conservative communities through art. And it gives the impression that art is only a progressive expression rather than a human expression. So just wondered if you had thoughts on that.
Well, first of all, it's wonderful that we have somebody that knows a little bit about, you know a lot about Brazil, because I see that here in Rwanda, you are not from Rwanda, but people still don't know much about Brazil. That gives me the opportunity also to talk about the country since we opened the embassy just last 1st June. We are very new here. But when I mentioned the fact that democracy helped us to bring artists into the promotion of who we are, I had in mind the fact that people from, let's say, communities that are disadvantaged communities, they had the opportunity to show their existence, the way they live, how they express their existence through art. And now, as you rightly said, there is a dispute, there's a kind of divide between groups who express what. And this is so clear, it's sociology. You have people from, let's say, communities where they have their own way of living, but now they have been also experiencing the issue of faith, religion, and how that's changing the way they perform their arts. So we have this division between groups in Brazil, but I think that there are some institutions in the country that are trying to bridge this gap. But it's really very difficult, and I think this is a problem we have. And I still believe that if we work at the grassroots, that's where we can do more. And I think that's what the government has been doing, to try to promote arts in these groups and important institutions in Brazil that deal with art. For instance, you may know SESC in São Paulo, that's a very strong institution. They really they have lots of spaces in the surrounding areas of São Paulo, in the poor areas of São Paulo, and the idea is to have people the opportunity to speak about them. And I think that's empowering, as our professor said here, empowering through art. And this is something that may help us to bridge this gap among two very opposing groups nowadays.
Thank you. We have 3 questions. Let's start with the one there.
Yeah, thank you so much. My name is Romeo Mojisha. I'm a Rwandan curator. So first of all, thank you, Your Excellency, to be with us here today. So my question is about the Brazil embassy, the engagement here in Rwanda. So here in Rwanda, only few embassies work closely with local artists. So I'm wondering, since Brazil is very known for their vibrant culture, so how is Brazilian embassies planning to work closely with Rwandan artists globally and creative industry in general? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Definitely the idea of coming close to the local artists and the local culture is in our agenda. I'm glad to inform that, for instance, even I must confess that I have nothing, the Brazilian government has very little to do with it. Now we are going to somehow give support to the idea. But I think it will be very interesting. There is a project to teach Brazilian rhythms to local people, to Rwandan people. And it's a group of 150 people that will be, it's a Frenchman who teaches this in other countries in the world, and he goes to Brazil for Carnival. And the idea is to have a local carnival in February, March next year. But for that, we need people to know how to play the way we play. So I think this getting close. Well, wonderful. I think it's going to be nice. And what we are going as the Brazilian Embassy, we are going to sponsor people, people who are in the, let's say, teenagers, young people, to start. We are going to sponsor the scholarship to be in this school. But people who can pay, and even old people, they can go and learn how to play. So, but the point is how the fact that I'm here and Hope went to Brazil, there is already a dialogue between, it's just beginning this dialogue, but I think it's something in our agenda to connect. And here I have to mention something that's interesting, because Brazil, being a country with so many people from black origin, we don't know about Rwanda. Our tradition is to discuss Africa from a perspective of slave trade. So because this part of the world was not, fortunately, most of it was not associated with slave trade, our eyes in Brazil, even from our black community, is not directed to Rwanda. So we have to overcome, and I love this idea, that we have to go, relations between Brazil and African countries have to go much beyond slave trade. We have together with the Rwandese artists and people, to connect with Brazil and say, look, Africa has gone through slave trade centuries ago, and you please in Brazil stop thinking of Africa just as the countries or the continent where black people came from. We are now something new or old, but we have our agenda, we have our politics today, and let's come into something new. So it's interesting, when we had, some 5 years ago, there was a very big exposition of contemporary African art in Brazil, and it's so interesting. Any time that you have African art in Brazil, these exhibitions, they have more people than any other, because there is a public that's curious about what's going on in Africa. They normally don't attend, let's say, other experiences of art, but when you qualify African art, then there is a new public that comes. And when I was in this contemporary art exhibition, there was one room with Nigerian music. You cannot believe. It was always full. Long queues of people, you know, young people, they wanted to hear that music. So I think that we have new connections, and these new connections bring us to a very contemporary agenda. That's the agenda of the harassment, the difficult parts of our lives that we have to overcome these challenges together. So it's very much art associated with development, art associated with human rights, art associated with empowering women, poor communities, and that brings Brazil and Rwanda, I think, very close together. And that's what, when I look at the connections that we are going to have with art in Rwanda, it's much, I see it in this broader agenda of our common challenges and how can we use art to show that we are, let's say, in Portuguese we would say, in the same boat. Okay.
We have another question. Here too, sorry, yes. We have time for 2 questions, more maybe. Hello.
So, hello everyone. I'm deaf person, have disability of not hear and speak. I'm with the interpreter sign language. I thank for everyone here. You prepared this program for the talent for everyone. But I have the question for the deaf people. The deaf people, I don't have the many opportunities because they are not healed any opportunities. It is strong to see any opportunities as like a deaf people because they're not healed and not the skills about the social medias. How can think about the people of deaf to improve the art and skills? If you have if you have a diff and I have talent, but I don't have the support for like the interprets of sign language, like here, I don't know the one who can support me to interpret. I come with my interpret personal, but it's a problem. I ask for to support the deaf people for the interpret. In generally Rwandan countries, all the disability deaf peoples, they don't have the support interpret. But we have a talent to grow in the future, but they don't have any opportunities and they don't have any person care as the deaf people. The deaf peoples have many talents of dancing, singing, but they are not any place to go to perform that talent. In everywhere they favorize the people have no disability, but the people have disability of deaf, they are not supporting, but it's a problem. Thank you for everyone. My name is Bobo Sam.
Thank you. Would you like to add something on that?
I would first of all congratulate you for raising up and expressing your position. I think this is quite positive, and gives us, all of us who are here, the idea that we have really to have in mind the challenges and the need to include. The idea of inclusion is so much into art, into politics done by countries like Brazil. So it's good to have this view, and we, as far as I'm concerned, I'll have this in mind when we discuss cultural diplomacy in Rwanda.
Yeah, and I also would like to add that arts and culture are or should be a safe place for every people, no matter their characteristics, and give space to those people to express. And if this happens, then we can move to a political level maybe. But thank you for raising and asking these questions. I think we have one more question and time for one more question. Yes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Baruta, again. And this is not a question, and this was a great point to talk about. Really great point. Since this is not the regular conference, since this is an unconference, we should expect some ideas from the floor. How we can develop alternative solutions or provide opportunities to this side. Actually, this is a great point to talk. What do you think? What we can do together? What we can do together? We always expect contributions from the institutions. But as a community, what we can do together? Please, I would like to hear, I really would like to hear your points on that. Thank you. If there is a great contribution, I would like to hear. Thank you very much.
Yes, I think I'm not, mine is a question still. I'm David, University of Rwanda. Yes, thank you, Madam Ambassador, for the insightful messages. My issue is when we grew up many years ago, when there is this common saying that where mercy fails, force is applied. So how do you relate this common saying to the global conflicts, and where do you place diplomacy in this kind of situation? Thank you.
Do you want to put the two together and then I respond because there is something? So, and then I have to go.
We can have the other one question as well, and Ambassador will answer to both of them before we close.
I just want to address your concern. I think my name is Trent Williams. I'm from the United States. One thing I think people need to understand is that inclusiveness is conversation, and conversation includes inclusiveness. And in that inclusiveness, there needs to be more conversation, because I sometimes feel there's a lack of knowledge of different bases or different things that are happening. And I think when there is more conversation of how people, the disadvantage, or if you feel, or if you're coming from a disadvantaged place, or if you're coming from a great place of just want to know more information, I think there is a place where it just needs to be more conversation around the topic, because I think the lack of knowledge is what actually is the reason why there's no support sometimes.
Well, so I will go back to that question. I think that the saying that you mentioned is something that goes along with something that I always say when I speak to people who are looking into possibility of studying to be a diplomat. I always say, look, when a diplomat fails, a general has to step in. I think it's the same idea. So we diplomats, we don't give up the idea that we are, using a funny word, we are fighting for peace. I mean, we are working for peace. And when the challenge is as big as it is today, it just shows us how important is the work that we do to create some kind of common grounds, and to even postponing conflicts, it's a victory. Every time that we put ahead one day, probably we are saving lives during that day. So I see the challenge of the moment as something to take us out of that comfort zone. For 80 years, we lived many severe conflicts, and here in Africa, we see Sudan, DRC, we see quite a number of them. But as a general, a world war, for 80 years, we understood that we had come to a time of peace through trade and all these ideas. Nowadays, we know that this is not true. Nowadays, we see, for instance, again, that's something for all of you. I'm certainly the oldest people in this room. I'm 63. I come from a generation when we were seeing the results of the Vietnam War, when you see, all the bad things coming out of that experience. The end of Second World War was not so much behind. We saw the creation of ideas that were giving us where we go through trade and everything is going to be in peace. And nowadays, coming back to the 60s, we see that there is it's a big pressure of, for instance, the arm industry to keep us fighting. And so we need to counteract this with, and then coming to what you said, we have to discuss, and we have to open up this. So just to conclude, because unfortunately I have another engagement, I have to go, but it's interesting that for the first part of this discussion that we are talking about cultural diplomacy, to somehow we avoid recognizing the challenge that we have nowadays, that's war. And if I may compare, it's like we were not recognizing, for instance, deaf people who are here, but they want to participate. It's always better not to recognize the challenges, but we have to. If we wanted to overcome, in the beginning, mid-90s, it was the heavy time of the war in Angola. And it was so amazing. There was one artist there that he used all pieces. Nowadays you say, well, this is so common sense. In the 90s it was not. He used all pieces of leftovers of the war, from pieces of bullets, from old machine guns, and he would do his art to denounce. And his art was going all over to say, we have a war here. And again, we have to speak about the challenges, and art is part of this, and we work together with diplomacy. And I think this is cultural diplomacy. Who we are, the challenge we have to overcome, and how ready we are to face these challenges, but move ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Irene, for your thoughtful contributions. I would like to keep the perspective that our friend brought today. How, from our respective fields, how do we contribute to inclusivity? How do we cultivate empathy, not in theory, but in practice? And arts and culture as fields give us the tool to do steps towards that direction. So let's have that in our mind. And thank you very much. Thank you very much again. And what I have understood today, just for a closing, is that cultural diplomacy is not just about showcasing identity, it's about shaping relationships. So from our respective fields, whether it is art, culture, diplomacy, we are building the soft infrastructure of global cooperation. And it is a wish to continue to hold space for creativity, connection, and inclusivity in the work ahead. Thank you for being here today, for reflecting with us, and we will continue with the wonderful schedule of today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Irina. Thank you, Ambassador. Just a quick announcement before we move on. Don't look for me, I'm right behind you. Okay, so just a quick announcement before we move on. I have been told to let you know that the bathrooms are just behind the screen. So if you do need a washroom, you have to exit from here and then just follow my hand. Behind the screens, there's a door that leads to the washroom area. Also, we're going to have lunch very shortly, and if you do need something to drink, coffee or juice or some snacks, we have some right behind there, and you can just help yourselves before lunch. Right now, we have a short performance called Girls and Violins. It's going to be very exciting, and you'll love it. So thank you very much.
I am the flame of hope, lighting the world with peace and love. More than ever now, let this flame be the guiding
Thank you. Thank you so much, girls and violins. That was a beautiful performance. Made me wish I could, do all those things, but let's not try to break any bones. Yeah, I like being alive. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's almost time for us to go for lunch. But just before we do that, we need to kind of put this on the record. So we would like to take a group photo of everyone, not just the speakers, everyone in the room. So I would like to invite the photographer. Georgie, where are you? Yes, please come and pose us. Yeah, so we know where to stand. And here, on the steps, please come forward. Thank you. Georgie is our photographer, and he knows, how to arrange us in the best possible way. So can you please come up, everyone. Let's take a photo for the gram. Hope you know that you are standing somewhere here.
Or sitting somewhere.
Okay, so let's do this quickly, and then we go have some lunch and get ready for the showcase. Are you actually sitting? All right. Everybody, girls and violins, come forward. Thank you. Okay. Let me press with Maya. I was taken by surprise, man. I'm like, yo, I don't believe it. Well, okay, if I am who you say, why do I feel like I'm losing my way? Why? He said, boy, just believe what you pray. And no Kigali was not built in a day. Hey. There's a cloud on my heart today. He said, peace is on the way. Then I said, but it won't let the light escape. He said, yes, please smile. Say cheese. Say Ubumuntu. Alright then. Well, that's when I told him. Yeah, that's when I told him. Show me the way. Show me the way. Cause I like to live to a ripe old age. Yeah, show me the way. Show me the way. Teach me to change all the dark long days to smile. To smile. Man, it's hard, but I'll be okay if you show me the way. Ubumuntu.
Hi everyone, can everyone hear me? Can everyone see me here? Can I get a yeah? Alright, I'll be taking this picture. Alright, that's video. Alright, looking into the camera up here. In 3, 2, 1, yay! Louder guys, 3, 2, 1. Come on guys, you can do better than that. One last one, yay!